And there, the conservative candidate destroyed the Republican nominee. She had to withdraw from the race, so he became the putative Republican nominee. He ran a very different campaign, an overwhelmingly Republican district. I'm not even sure I know very much about this district, and I don't understand economics very well. I just know that we have to get back to our principles, and he ran as a social conservative, and he lost a district they hadn't lost since the Civil War. So what I want to say to you is, and the guy who beat him in this Republican district came out for the stimulus package, for health care reform, and for doing something about global warming. And the people voted for him because he was an upfront veteran, I might add. He was a veteran, came out to do it. So what is the lesson of all this? The lesson, again, is people hire us when the country is in trouble and they want us to stand and deliver the American dream again. And in this case, they have hired the Democrats to get us out of an economic crisis, to put us on a path to long-term prosperity that includes all of us who are willing to work hard and play by the rules, and to build a world where we have a strong national defense and fight when we have to, but we know we basically can't shoot our way out of any of the problems we face. We also have to build a world with more partners and fewer adversaries because of the way the world works. It's a world we can lead but not dominate. Now that is the world we face today. And so what I want to say to all of you is that I hope that you will support the President and your senators who have some hard votes coming up in the health care battle in doing two things. We have two big jobs in America. Number one, we have to restore the American dream. Before the financial collapse that began on September the 15th, 2008, and which ended any remote chance the Republicans had to win the White House. That, I must say, that is, and I liked it because I was for the other guy. But it's the only time in my lifetime we did not have a presidential election on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. This presidential election, make no mistake about it, was held on September the 15th, 2008, when President Bush and his team decided to let Lehman Brothers fail and live with the consequences. And they really decided John McCain would live with the consequences. After that, he didn't have a 1 in 50 chance of winning. It was over. And I say that because the first duty of the President is to get the economy going again and then put it on a path to longer-term prosperity where we have shared prosperity. Since we went off the gold standard in the early 1970s, income inequality has increased in America in good times and bad. The only 4 years in which the top 20% of earners did not have a bigger percentage increase in their earnings than the bottom 20%, since the early 70s, were the 4 years of my second term, and that's because the economy produced almost 23 million new jobs, and because we held health care costs constant with inflation so people could claim and get raises that they had worked hard for and earned, and we had record increases in family income. But let me say, this is serious. I'm not trying to get applause for what happened. It happened. Okay, then when President Bush came in, he brought back the economic philosophy that dominated America in the 80s and quadrupled the debt from $1 to $4 trillion. And what did we get? We had an economy that grew on three things only: on housing, which was fine as far as it went, but there's a limit to how far you can take it. And if you go over the limit, you see what happens. And the subprime mortgages and the bundled subprime mortgages and all that. That was 40% of our growth in the first part of this decade. The second thing was consumer spending, which was fine, but there are limits. When people max out their credit cards and take all the second mortgages they can, that's about all you can do. The rest of it was in finance, which by definition promotes inequality because there are just a few people who can make money out of it. Therefore, in this decade, 90% of the gains went to the top 10% of earners. 43% of the income gains went to the top 1% of us, all of whom were lavished with tax cuts under the Bush policy, which he paid for by borrowing money from China, which has a lower per capita income than we do, by a factor of 5 or 6. So President Obama becomes president with this monstrous headache of an economic problem. And then the Republicans have the gall to go out here in this election and blame him for not fixing something quick enough that they caused. And to talk about with a straight face, they talk about government spending and fiscal responsibility. I mean, you know, it'd be embarrassing if they didn't do it so well. Now, I say that because here we are. Meanwhile, the president has to find a way to keep his word and the country's wish to bring down, and their wish in Iraq, to bring down our involvement there in a way that maximizes the chances of the country to hold together and to preserve their democracy. There are a lot of good people there, and they're doing their best to make this work. And he has a terrible decision, difficult one to make, in Afghanistan. And I can tell you, I've studied this 9 ways from Sunday, and this is my honest opinion. This is one of those unknowable questions. So I intend to support him, whatever he does, because he did the right thing. He didn't get stampeded into this by the people that tried to stampede him. He took the time to study this decision. It was the right thing to do. And so he's thought it through. All of his security team has thought it through. They know how hard it is. It is unknowable what will work. And therefore, I'm going to stick with him, and I just want him to tell us what's going on, and if it doesn't work, whatever he does, to have the courage to change course. But this is what we're a party for. We've got to ride through this, because you don't just get to make the easy decisions. What should we want? How do we want to feel when President Obama leaves office? We want to feel that the 3 fundamental conditions of service in this world we're living in have been satisfied. We want our country to be doing better with equal opportunity and equal responsibilities, and we want the country to be coming together, not being torn apart, and we want our children and grandchildren to have a brighter future. The rest of it doesn't amount to a hill of beans. It's all smoke and mirrors. That's the only test. Are people better off when you quit than when you started? Do the kids have a brighter future? Is the country and is the world, are they coming together or being torn apart? Those are the great tests. And that's what people hire Democrats to do, folks. And so I supported the president very, very strongly when he did the stimulus package, because the economy was shrinking and there was no other way to stop it from shrinking. And there's no question that, even though it's a very frustrating time, it prevented a cataclysm. The middle-income tax cuts gave people money to go to the grocery store and kept a lot of grocery stores open. The aid to state and local governments made up almost half of the shortfall they faced and kept the state and local governments from either raising taxes, which would have been bad for the economy, or laying off more than 1 million teachers and healthcare workers. That was a good thing. Only about 1/3 of that stimulus was designed to immediately create private sector jobs in the construction projects and the clean energy projects. I support the energy bill that Congress has passed that is putting billions of dollars out there to create jobs in a clean energy future. But what I want you to think about today is how you want to feel when this is over, and what you have to do to support the senators, the Democratic Congress, your governor and your state officials as they face these tough decisions, and what you're going to say in this next election as you try to hold Joe Biden's Senate seat for the Democrats where it ought to be. And I want you to think about that, because so let's begin with the obvious question. People ask me all the time, now that we had one good economic report and Ben Bernanke said the recession's over. So every time I give one of these community talks, not to a Democratic group, just to any group, half the time there are as many Republicans as Democrats, the groups I addressed, they say, well, is the recession over?